Hey Zach, I just recorded a video trying to say what I wanted to say, and it was 10 minutes long, and my point isn't that complex, so I can do it shorter than that. Basically, I'm taking issue with your statement that it's not a philosophical conversation, that trying to find the roots of what is wrong with civilization is not philosophical. Um, you said it's not about ideas, it's about facts, and either you know them or you don't. Um, Now, certainly there are certain ways of doing philosophy that distinguish it from action, and thinking about ideas is just passively contemplating what could be, what might be, instead of making it be that way. But for me, thinking is a form of doing, knowledge is a form of action, and the particular way that we structure our epistemology, in other words, the particular way that we know reality, goes a long way in structuring how we act in that reality. If we think that the world, that nature is just blind atoms in motion with no intelligence, no purpose, then we are going to treat that world accordingly. We're going to exploit it, use it for resources, because what else is it good for but to provide us human beings who are intelligent and are purposeful and do have the ability to suffer. Um, what purpose would nature have but to make us feel better? I mean, that's the basic materialist uh, epistemology, the materialist way of knowing. And I think that materialism is the root of our problem. That way of perceiving nature and reality is what causes us to think that genetically modified organisms are better than nature's way of doing it, or that any new technology is necessarily always better than the way we've traditionally done something. This is what leads us to think that some Homo sapiens are less um, civilized than we white men in the West, and therefore it's our burden to make them better and bring them into a more advanced way of living when they were perfectly happy living the way they were. It's almost our I mean, the Western civilized world. It's almost our pathology to say that everybody else is broken if they don't live like us because we found the only right way of doing things. Um, I've been reading this book by Christian de Quincy, Radical Nature, and he coined this term, or someone else coined the term that he appropriated, epistemopathy. In other words, the materialist way of knowing is dysfunctional and destructive and unhealthy, and we therefore need epistemotherapy. We need to heal this rift in our being that leads us to think there's this intelligent mind that only humans possess, or only some humans possess, the civilized kind, and that nature and all the humans that aren't civilized are somehow stupid, unintelligent, lacking some essential ingredient that makes them worth uh, existing. Um, and so, as far as I'm concerned, trying to change the way people know the world is just as much playing an active role in changing that world as is getting out there and doing something. Um, and unless we know what it means to know, unless we are aware of the particular way of knowing that we are employing, the rush to do something may turn out to be just as destructive as what we were trying to prevent. Um, and on a somewhat related note, your question or your statement that either you know the facts that you're saying or you don't know them is based on the idea that there's only one way of knowing. Um, because different epistemological stances lead to different types of facts being accepted. One way of knowing admits as facts certain things that another way of knowing sees as nonsense. And unless we can clearly distinguish why, say, you and Gary would disagree, or I and Gary would disagree about the nature of nature, we have to understand that we're taking different epistemological stances. Um, and it doesn't mean that uh, we don't need a diversity of epistemological stances, but certainly, there are a diversity of microorganisms. Some of them live in our bodies and are symbionts and mutualists, and they help us to live. Other microorganisms invade our body and kill us. So not all microorganisms are beneficial. Some are pathological. Same goes for epistemologies. There are many varieties of epistemologies, many varieties of knowing the world. Some of them are perfectly okay, though they are different, but some of them are pathological. And I think the materialist epistemology is pathological. It's destroying the planet. It's destroying human life, the quality of life, both, interpersonally, intrapersonally, and naturally, our ability to relate to our ecosystem. It's destroying it all. And I think we are therefore correct to say that it is in need of being healed and cured, and that it is pathological. So don't hate on philosophy. It's not just ideas. There are some ideas in philosophy that structure everything we then do. Thinking and knowledge are a form of action. So hopefully you're not annoyed by this parsing of words, and maybe you'll get back to me and we can discuss this. And I know you don't want to discuss, you want to do, you want to walk away. But look, capitalism, which is just an extreme version of all the negative things of civilization that you want to move us away from, capitalism cannot be destroyed by anything outside of it, because it just swallows it and appropriates it and turns it into something it can sell. But capitalism is destroying itself. We don't need to do anything. We just have to know how to pick up the pieces after the shit has stopped hitting the fan. Maybe that's a negative way of looking at it, but in 100 years from now, my best estimate is that the human population will be far smaller than it is today. What we know as industrial civilization will not exist, and there will be a small population of people, relatively speaking, who will live in very exciting times, because they will be trying to sort of save the species of humanity, prevent it from being just this scar on in the history of the Gaian ecosystem's development, and allow it to flower into something beautiful. Though it may have for a time been a parasite on this planet, 100 years from now we may have time to redeem ourselves. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Life on this planet is not threatened by anything we're doing today. Life will always go on. It's a question of whether we want to be along for the ride, we Homo sapiens, or not. So we have to make that decision. So yeah, thanks for listening. I guess I didn't make this video as short as I wanted to, but let me know what you think.